I'll introduce myself. Many people know me, but I'm Nina Poland, Janina Kutrzeba, the director of the Polish Theatre Institute in the USA. And since Joseph, or rather Dr. Joseph Kutrzeba, has been connected with the theatre for years, he asked me to introduce him. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Alex Dorożynski in Ellen Garden for providing this wonderful, wonderful space for this very special event. Of course, yes, please. Frankly, one of the few places that welcomes us in programs like Dr. Kutrzeba's. What I'd like to also do is, we of course know why we are gathered here. It's the publication of Joseph's new book, The Contract, A Life for a Life. Sheer entertainment, compelling, a willingness to confront moral ambiguity, lyrically beautiful, highly recommended. It is impossible to put it down. I can vouch for that, as many of my friends who read it. The most moving story I have read in years. Wonderful. The book is based on the author's experiences in the Nazi-occupied Warsaw during World War II. He is trying to join the resistance. He does. But then he is packed off into a freight train which is on the way to a death camp. He escapes, and during his many harrowing wanderings, he meets a very idealistic, wonderful priest who takes care of him, saves him, and eventually sets him on his way to do things on his own. I don't want to tell this whole story of the book, obviously, so I'll just cut to the moment when he is liberated at the end of the war by American troops. He emigrates to the United States, where he's promptly drafted and goes to fight in Korea, where he receives 5 decorations and 2 battle stars. Later he graduates from Yale and from NYU with a PhD. He joins the staff of CBS TV and the United Nations Radio, from which in Polish he broadcasts to Poland. He creates a theater, the Queen's Playhouse, which he runs for 7 years. And he receives, or rather is nominated for a Tony and Drama Desk Award as Best Producer on Broadway. I think it's time enough of me speaking to meet the author, who is going to read an excerpt from the book. May I introduce Dr. Joseph Kutrzeba.
Thank you, Nina Poland, for presiding on this wonderful event. Thank you, all my friends, for coming, and thank you, friends to be, for coming. For those of you who have just purchased the book downstairs, if you read it and don't like it, you get your money back. The reason of writing this book was mainly to bear witness to men's inhumanity to men, but also to extol recognition to those who have risked their lives to save others, but at times with dire consequences. And I also wrote the book to validate my arduous journey. You know, when one reads about World War II on the Holocaust, one is filled with grief or monstrous sorrow. But once in a while there would be a moment of elation, such as the liberation. The time is early 1945 April, and the place is Erfurt, the province of Thuringia in Germany. By this time, April 1945, the Allied armies have conquered a huge chunk of Germany, and the American Air Force especially ruled the skies without opposition. Many cities, including Erfurt, lie in tatters. When between the awesome air raids which devastated the cities, I would look up, just jumping out of the air raid shelter, it seemed as though enormous flocks of birds had covered the skies. Those were the American bombers. While most of the foreign force laborers were put up in special camps where they were often abused and beaten, by some weird luck, myself and my Polish roommate are housed by an employer in a small room in an office building right smack in the center of the town square. Soon enough, virtually all the buildings on the square lay crushed by the bombs. Incredibly, except our building. Eventually, air raids sounded several times during the night. We had to seek shelter in the basement with several Germans. One night, after being awakened a few times, I had had enough. When my roommate exhorted me to run for the shelter, I would say, "Leave me alone. I want to sleep. I don't care anymore." Until later that night. During the war, as a 13-year-old boy, I didn't have to wear the glasses. That's the price for liberation. Something was in the air, but we were too cautious to explore. They must know something, I thought. The air was tense. Even the few elderly Germans seemed unusually quiet. This was when Antoś burst into the cellar. The air warden squinted reprovingly, but Antoś was yelling in Polish, "Get out of here, quick, and follow me!" "Shh!" Franek attempted to quiet him. "Watch yourself, this guy here, fucking! They're here!" "Who?" "The Americans! He can't do nothing no more! They're here!" We darted behind him, out the narrow door and up the steps into the blinding daylight, over burning bricks and collapsed beams, up the narrow street of the plaza. I was out of breath, but didn't matter. It only mattered to keep up with Antoś. Leaping and flying, we cleared the rubble. Up ahead, we ran into a whole gang of civilians milling around a wine and liquor store. Some were hastily carrying out bottles, others struggling to get in. Military-looking men, some black of face, dressed in strange khakis and carrying rifles, tried to disperse the crowd, but nobody was paying attention. Obviously, no one was afraid of the soldiers. They seemed to have regard for human life. We ran until we reached the main avenue and stopped just as suddenly. It was a sight.